Thank you very much. So maybe I'll just start by telling you a little bit about how I've got to what I work at now in the industry, because I'm not, and actually never have been, an entrepreneur, but I have met a lot of entrepreneurs and I've looked at a lot of business plans. So as Dan said, I've been in the industry actually, I think at this stage, 27 years. I joined the industry pretty soon after a career in medicine in Dublin, Ireland, as you may gather from my accent. After some years in a small European pharma company, I joined GSK and worked in a number of roles over about 13 years. It would have been SmithKline Beecham at the time, and then subsequently after the merger, GlaxoSmithKline. Ultimately, I landed in a business development role, and that was really where I, for the first time in my career, started interacting really with the outside world, beyond obviously the customers and the users and the prescribers of our products, but really the people who are innovating out there and trying to find new things for pipelines. So I've spent about, before my current role in venture investing, I spent about 15 years in business development roles, both at GSK and then subsequently at Johnson & Johnson. And what I did actually in both of those roles really is, I think, relevant to the business plan piece here. I was in a role called scientific licensing, and these are usually the experts that sit within the global business development function, who really kick the tires of the science and try and understand what the technology really means and how it translates and how it's going to fit potentially into our pipeline. So that gave me a really good insight. And more recently then, I worked on an alliance management project of one of the companies that we did a big collaboration with, Elan and Pfizer, in an Alzheimer's immunotherapy program. And then I moved to venture investing, which I've been doing for the last 2 years. So this business plan discussion, what I'm going to walk you through is a business plan that's really geared towards investors. But I would argue that it's something, as an innovator, as an entrepreneur, somebody trying to start up a business, even if you're just looking for your first couple of grand loan from a bank to get your doors open, you need to be thinking about documenting a business plan. So really, it's no different from a business plan, frankly, for any investment purpose. So I'm going to talk about 3 areas: why you need a business plan, and then we'll dig into it a little bit and talk about some of the areas that I feel are commonly overlooked by entrepreneurs when they're putting a business plan together, and then we'll just finish with some parting thoughts. Now, before I even start to talk about a business plan, the last speakers, and I'll touch on a lot of the things that came up in the last discussion, which I think are really relevant, and it's really, really good advice that you heard there from people that are interacting with entrepreneurs and evaluating technologies for all sorts of business relationships. There's a big discrimination here between some of what you heard there. I mean, they talked a lot about a pitch, about trying to get in the door and pitch your idea. A business plan is more than a pitch, okay? It's really the detail underneath your pitch. So as I'm a bit of a process detailed sort of person, and I would, if I was putting together a pitch, I actually would start to write the business plan first, and then I'd synthesize that all the way back up into a pitch. Just for me, it's a kind of a better way to do it, because then I really understand the detail of what I'm trying to communicate, and then the pitch is the sort of the compelling piece of that are going to get you in the door. But this is the business plan, okay? So it is the more detailed bit. So why do you need a business plan in the first place? I have seen lots of entrepreneurs come with a pitch, with a 5-10 slide PowerPoint deck, and they think that's their business plan. It is not a business plan. And really, anybody who's holding the money and who's controlling the money will not invest in you. They may like your idea, and they may try to find some other way to commercialize or to amortize your idea, but they won't want to work with you if they can't see that you've really thought through what it means to take that business, make it a reality. So it's really a tool to start a conversation with investors in your business, okay? This is what we're talking about. So you need to tailor it with those investors in mind. It's going to lead to, from the business plan, you will be able to synthesize your pitch and get in the door. But you'll know going into your pitch that when they say, yeah, you know, that's kind of interesting, I like that, tell me more, you've actually got more to tell them then because you've got your business plan sitting behind it. Because on the basis of that business plan and the pitch of your business plan, they're going to want to do diligence on your business then. So there's got to be something there for them to actually look at. It's not just a passing thought or an idea. And that hopefully then is going to lead to transaction. In this case, we're really talking about investment type transactions. But it could equally be a transaction with a big pharma to actually license your technology in some sort of collaborative relationship. It's going to work there as well. Okay. So what is a good business plan? Well, it's got a couple of key elements, really. It's got to demonstrate unmet need. You heard that a lot. I've often seen entrepreneurs pitch a business and they kind of have, you know, scientists sometimes come to the business table and think, well, the business guys, the investors, all they're interested in is making money out of me. So I've got to tell them in the first slide what the valuation is going to be on the exit of my company, and I'll benchmark it against, you know, here's my idea, and it's worth, the last guy that did this, he made you investors 400 million euros on exit. It's like, that's just not going to excite anybody, especially not. It certainly won't excite, I think Rick Cousins said it a minute ago, it's not going to turn him on as a scientist working within Big Pharma looking to collaborate with entrepreneurs. It actually won't excite entrepreneur or investors in entrepreneurs either, because they know what these businesses look like and they know how hard it is to get to those exits. Their focus is the same as the pharma company's focus, which is, what is the unmet medical need that you're going to address? What difference is this product, this technology in life sciences going to make to patient care, to management of a disease, to outcomes of a medical condition? That's absolutely got to be right up there. So if you get that right, if you demonstrate in your business plan that you're addressing an unmet need, then you will tickle the interest of the investors who know the space, who are educated about life science investment, and they'll recognize, hopefully for you, that this is an important area for them to have in their investment portfolio. Okay? And they're looking at hundreds of ideas all the time, and so you've really got to tickle that interest. Secondly, and sort of linked with that then, you've got to demonstrate, came up again in the last conversation, how your product is differentiated versus the competitors. It's critical. You know, the industry, like I said, I've been in the industry for nearly 30 years now, and truthfully, there were many innovations or many products that were developed by the industry 20 years ago, and when I first worked in the industry, that really were not innovated, that were not differentiated, that really were just capturing intellectual property advantage and follow-on products based on what was there already. The industry is not doing that anymore. If the industry isn't doing it, they are the ultimate developers of your products. And I guess I'm talking, I suppose, with the bias of biotech here. But if they're not doing it, then the investors are not going to invest in those sort of undifferentiated products either. It's really got to have an opportunity for differentiation. Now, this is pretty tricky, okay, because it may, you know, if you're in a pharma or biotech area, it's going to be many years until your product reaches the market, and the product may or may not be in any way in your control in the later stages of development. Most likely it won't be, actually. And the market is going to change a lot in that time frame. So you've got to be very educated when you're thinking about differentiation as to not just what's already out there in the market, but you've got to have your scientific hat on and your healthcare and life science hat on and have an understanding of who else is working in that space and how the market is going to evolve during the history of your product's development. But if you get that right, the VCs, the investors are going to think, you know, if we invest in this, we could actually be a leader in this field, and this is something that's really, you know, value creating for our investment portfolio. And then the third piece is, and this is where it sort of goes beyond a pitch really, it's, you know, there's got to be an operational plan that's detailed, that you've thought about the timeline, realistically, the timeline, the costs, and the milestones that you're going to have to get through, or that the product is going to have to get through in order to be successful. And if you're thoughtful and realistic about that, you will be able to translate that into interest with venture investors. They will look at you and they'll say, not only is this a great idea, and not only does this have the potential to differentiate from the competition, but these guys really know how to execute on the plan. And so, you know, I'm not just going to take that idea and find a way to license off them and build a company around that with people that I think know what they're doing. These guys are capable of taking this plan through. That's really important if you want to be part of the journey that your innovation, that your product is going to make. So what is this thing of unmet need? You know, it's very marketing speak, really. Well, you know, it obviously depends on the market that you're going after, and it will mean different things to different people. And what you will be able to articulate as unmet need may not work for a particular investor or a particular pharma company. But generally speaking, if you think about it as being very focused and very value creating, that's the right sort of opportunity to go after. So for instance, if the value creation opportunity is low, and if the scope of the idea is very broad, in other words, it's going to take a long time to develop, you're going to have to do a lot of clinical trials and a lot of different indications to demonstrate any value at all, the investors will see that just as a money pit, and they really won't want to invest in that. If the scope is still very broad, despite being extremely value creating, they'll just see that as too high a risk. You know, it's not focused enough. It's going to be expensive, and yes, they might hit the jackpot, but likely scenario is that they will sort of fritter away a lot of their cash trying to get there. And equally, if it's very focused with very low value creation opportunity, that's what they would see as a niche investment, and it may not be a good fit for their portfolio. So probably the ideal investment opportunity is one that's in the top right-hand box here. It's highly value creating, but very focused in terms of scope. You know, that it's really going after something that's easy to articulate, that's easy or easier to operationalize. So thinking then about differentiation, like I said, your cycle times typically, and the same is true now for medtech, the cycle times are much longer than they used to be. But for pharma, they're anything from 10 to 20 years. So you've got to really think about how much you need to move the needle in terms of the scientific evidence for differentiation at the starting point, in order for that to still translate into differentiation when the product gets to market. You know, so marginal scientific differentiation in an in vitro setting or an in vivo setting is probably going to be a wash by the time you get into patients and you try to translate that into clinical science. So you've really got to scientifically be going after something with a pretty transformational shift for there to be true differentiation by the time you get to market. So think about it this way. What are the patient needs today, or the customer needs today, and how does this technology or this innovation really address those? How can it really close the gap? Think about people that you know, really, make it personal, who have a condition or have a disease, have an illness, and what it means to them to have that illness, and to what extent will your innovation make that journey, that illness, different to them in a way that's really positive. what are you shooting for in terms of an outcome on the use of your product? Like I said, if it's a small difference in an in vitro setting, likelihood is by the time you sort of scale that up to clinical trials, it's just not going to, it's going to be impossible to demonstrate in a placebo-controlled setting that your product's any different to another one. So be clear that you are shooting for a transformational difference in terms of clinical outcome. And very importantly, I think it was touched on the last part of the session as well as, how to protect your idea. The investors in your idea and the pharma companies that might want to collaborate with you and your idea, they want to know that they will be able to protect that technology long term so that others cannot easily replicate what you do. So the ability to secure IP protection for farm biotechnology, absolutely essential. You need to understand the patent space. You need to have done your homework in collaboration with, the tech transfer offices of your university or with wherever you can get the help to understand whether there's an opportunity for you to file a patent, or hopefully by the time you're pitching for investors, you've already filed your patent, and that you will have freedom to operate by the time your product comes to the market. So putting together this business plan is really all about preparation. Genius, 1% inspiration, 99% perspiration. The reality is you may have a great idea, but if you can't really put it down on paper, it's just in your head and it's meaningless to anybody else. It's just not going to capture an investor's interest and you're not going to be able to commercialize it. So you need to support your idea with evidence. So came up again earlier, how much data do you need? Really as much as it takes within the space, within the context of the scope of the technology that you're pursuing, that is able to demonstrate that potential for future differentiation, You've got to be able to benchmark it in your preclinical data against what's already out there or what else you know to be in development. And you've got to demonstrate that you've consulted with experts on it and that experts have given you advice that this is a transformational opportunity. If you can capture this in your business plan, you will definitely attract the interest of your potential investors. So in terms of the content then, just a couple of commonly overlooked areas. So here's the overall structure, and you'll see this if your business schools, you're on the internet. To be honest, you'll be able to find a kind of a format for a business plan, a template. It's going to have an executive summary, an outline of the unmet need, an overview of the product or the platform with some key data that demonstrates what that platform or what that product is bringing to investors and potentially to the market and to patients. Market research and competitive intelligence, I'm going to talk about that some more. An operating plan and some summaries of your intellectual property position and the financials supporting your plan. So the competitors, look, no matter how brilliant you think your idea is, almost certainly other people have been thinking of similar ideas. And in whatever space you are working in, there are other people with great ideas in that space, as well as current technologies out in the market. So know your market, know what's out there. And I would look at, like, say you want to be in type 2 diabetes, and it's a therapeutic. Know what's out there in terms of surgical approaches to the condition that you're trying to address, in terms of lifestyle, consumer type products. Definitely know the bigger space and understand and be able to articulate how your product would fit into that broader competitive space. And know about how the technology is emerging in your space as well as how it's currently existing in the market. And then the operational plan. once again, this is really where the business plan goes to, you know, several levels of depth and detail beyond a pitch. It's like, have you really thought about how you're going to spend my money as an investor? You know, these are meaningful amounts of money that you're going to be looking for to fund your technology. If it's farm biotech, you might be looking for a couple of million, you might be looking for 10 million, you might be looking for 20 million. How are you going to spend that? There's no point, you know, simply saying, well, you know, I've asked a couple of people around and I reckon it takes typically, you know, X million pounds to get a technology to this particular stage of development, and then there's an exit, we're done. Break it down. Understand what the steps are in the process, especially if you want to be there with your company executing on the plan. You've got to understand what that execution is going to entail. Go out and find out, get quotations from companies that you may have to go to do contract research for you, to do medicinal chemistry, to do toxicology, to manufacture the product for the first stages of GMP evaluation. Do all your homework. Consult with people that know these things if you've never worked in this area yourself. Use your network to build your business plan, but document it in a way. This is really important for investors, to give them a sense that it's not just the right technology for them to invest in, but that you're the right team for them to invest in. And then be realistic in your business plan. There's no point having this sort of fairy tale approach that it's all going to work out. Absolutely certain that you're going to run into lots of roadblocks. So be realistic and consult again with people as to what those roadblocks are, when they're going to happen, how much capital you'll have to deploy to get to those points, and how you're going to deal with the problems that may emerge. So if you know that the area that you're in, that a key hurdle for the type of chemistry that you're pursuing is a particular toxicology profile, well, how are you going to de-risk early your project to ensure that your program doesn't suffer from that toxicology risk? And the same is true for other types of risks, operational risks. What if you can't hire the right people? What if you have to, at a certain point, move out of an incubator into an office space? How are you going to fund that? You know, be realistic about the cost that you're going to require, the capital you're going to require to deploy at different stages of your plan. What are the regulatory risks? Have you thought about those? Have you talked to anybody about those? And if it's relevant that you're really building a business here to take the product all the way through to market, what are the market risks? And how can you mitigate those risks as early as possible so that the investors know whether it's sensible for them to invest in this? So finally then, some other thoughts. Just, I've talked about, you know, putting together the business plan, and, you know, with the best will in the world, you've come from, say, a science or a technology group, and you've got a technology idea. It's highly unlikely that you're going to have all of the skills that you need to execute on that, or even to put together a plan like this to get investors assembled around it. So use the people that you know and the people that you can access to get feedback, and use that feedback to build your business plan. I mean, I thought it was a great idea we heard earlier about rather than trying to put it all together yourself based on what you think that you know without any consulting, any advice, and to go straight into Big Pharma and try and pitch the idea. You know, it's very unlikely that that's going to be pitched in the right way. But it is a really good idea to find who the right people are to talk to, and to pick their brains in terms of what other elements you need to have in your business plan for it to be really attractive to investors and to other companies. So it's a cyclical process. You're not going to do this overnight. Plan for that. You know, if you're still doing your PhD or your postdoc and you really already have your business idea, use that time to actually put it together and to build it. And don't assume that you can cook this overnight, because it probably will fall flat on its face. So use your network, get people to help you, and you will be pleasantly surprised, I think, at how much people out there really do want to help you to put these types of ideas together. Everybody's ultimately in the same business in terms of trying to drive innovation to products and solutions that help patients out there. So it's a very positive environment, and use it to your best end to refine your business plan. I've probably not used anything like all of my time, but we'll have plenty of time for questions. Thank you.